Now let me talk to you just a little bit here on how I think you should use the course, or I don't even want to say how I think you should use it. This is maybe just one recommendation of, kind of a set of ideas on how to use the course. Because one thing I make clear to all of my students, and I always have for all the years, is don't let anyone tell you how to learn. Okay? I will convey information, but only you can truly know yourself and know how you learn. Okay? And that is something that's important, is if you don't know yourself and you don't know how you learn, because maybe you've always been told how to learn, well, start looking at yourself and figure out how to learn. But basically, here, the first bullet point I have here is an obvious one. Watch the lessons, right? I mean, watch the course, right? Yeah, that's the whole reason why we're here. So start off by watching the lessons. But I want you to keep in mind that one of the really cool things about learning the way we're learning here is that you have the ability to learn at your pace. If you were to go and sit in a classroom with an instructor, and by the way, I've been a classroom instructor for many years, and I'm a huge advocate of classroom learning. So I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing. But I want to point out here that if you were in a classroom, the one, I suppose, bad or negative aspect is that you are stuck with the instructor's timetable. Right? You're going to show up when the training center and the instructor tells you to, and you're going to sit there until the instructor says you can go home. I mean, that's pretty much how it works. And we're all adults, so I suppose you could go ahead and get up and walk out of a class if you want, but then you're going to miss out on material. Well, here you learn at your own pace, and if you have something else you need to do, somewhere else you need to be, or maybe you're just kind of gotten yourself into information overload and you need a break, well, then just pause the lesson. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Just go ahead and pause the lesson and come back later. And I will also add to that pausing the lesson gives you the ability sometimes to take notes. Some people like writing down notes as they learn things. It helps them to learn. And if you're one of those people, then by all means, at any point in time, I mean, I tend to talk real fast. If I'm talking quickly and I'm moving on to the next item, and you're like, wait, I want to make a few notes of what you just said. Pause the lesson, take some notes. Practice the material. Now, this is something that I say in all my courses, whereas with this course, there's not as much to practice. There's a lot more learning here in this particular course than there is doing. But the practice that I would refer to is as we talk about, let's say a piece of PC hardware, go ahead and open up a computer and find that component, or go out and purchase that component, or whatever it is that you need to do. Go ahead and find a way to practice and work with the components that you're learning about. Now, another nice thing about this type of training is, well, you can go back, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with watching the same lesson a second or a third or fourth or fifth or however many times you want to watch it. Okay, nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm certainly not at all offended if I knew that you watched a lesson and you said, wow, there's a lot of information in there and I only retained about 25% of it. I need to go back and watch it again. Okay. Because guess what? Again, that tends to be normal. Statistically, there have been studies done that actually show that when you go to a class, okay, so again, I mean, I've spent a lot of years in the classroom, so I've researched a lot of this. When you come to a class and you sit there for a week, usually some of the highest levels, some of the best people in the class only retained 50% of what was presented that week. And there's a lot of averages that say that you'll be in the 25 to 30% range when you only hear the information once and you're taking in this quantity of information. So there's nothing wrong with going back and watching a lesson again. Now, there are also practice questions which are included with the course, okay, so getting you ready for the certification exam. So I recommend that you do those practice questions. I also recommend that you use them as additional study material. And what I mean by that is you may get a practice question and I didn't literally cover the answer to that question in my lecture, in my demonstration of the course. Okay, there is a lot of material that is covered on these exams, and what I have found is that you typically would be hard pressed to find any one resource all by itself that covers every last aspect and every last question, and therefore you would automatically get 100% on the test. Okay, it just doesn't exist, and that's okay. That's why we go ahead and give you the dual resources. You have the one resource, which is me and my presentation, but then you have the other resource, which is the practice questions. And if you see a practice question and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't remember Ed specifically covering that in the course. Now, I probably covered that objective or that topic in the course, but maybe I didn't answer that literal question. Well, there's an opportunity for you to go ahead and try to find the answer. Find it by either looking at a computer and seeing if you can, visually see the answer. Go out onto the internet and search for the answer. There's all sorts of different resources, and Train Signal has plenty of resources if you need to come back to us to help find the answer to those questions. Matter of fact, even the questions themselves have the answers, and then they will also very often give you an explanation as to why that's the right answer or where you can go research more information about it. Okay, so I strongly recommend that you do that, whether you are going to get certified or not. Okay, because even if you're not going to get certified and you're just looking to learn here, again, the practice questions are supplemental learning material. Now, along those same lines, there is a lesson that I have way, almost at the very end of this course. It's called Preparing for Your CompTIA A+ Certification Exam. Okay, that's the name of that lesson. And in that lesson, I actually go over some of what I just explained to you here right now as far as how to use the practice test questions and stuff like that. But I'll also go over some other information about the certification exam. So if you are looking to get certified, I do recommend that you watch that lesson. And then there's also the very last lesson in the course, which is called Next Steps, which is a lesson. Don't jump into that lesson now, but basically it's a lesson where I will quickly kind of go over review everything with you, and then talk to you about what's next. Like, what do you do now that you're done with the course? Where do I go from here? Because that's the other very typical, very normal thing that people will go through is they will learn this material. They'll get good at it. They'll maybe even pass their A+ certification exam, and they're sitting there in this point of going, well, now what do I do? Well, I will help you with that in the Next Steps lesson. And that then does bring us to the end of this first lesson on getting started with your A+ certification training. But basically, what you see in front of you right now, this nice, pretty thank you for watching, get used to it, because when you see this, this always lets you know you can take a big sigh of relief. It means you've gotten to the end of a lesson. I have one of these on each one of my lessons, okay? So basically, this signifies we're at the end of this lesson. You'll see this at the end of every lesson, and I do thank you for watching, and I'm really excited, and I hope you are as well. And so I will see you in the next lesson, where we go ahead and get started talking about, well, computers.